From America's beautiful coastal beaches to the hilltops of mountains far-reaching, or even the gorgeous look of red rock in the desert, to a nice, vibrant day in a buzzing major metropolitan city, Americans are talking, and well, they're working too. And no matter which way a state votes, we're all still Americans in this large country of 300 million people. So here today to bring you America's perspectives are Matt Curran, Javen Polson, Gabriela Escudero, and Michelle Ferretta on Coast to Coast Conversations.
Michelle, we're back. How are you?
So good. Are you all shoveled out now, Javen?
Yes, I am all shoveled out. Yes, we had that little snowstorm was a week ago, 2 weeks ago here in Louisiana, which was definitely weird for us, but it was different. I'm sure. I know as I'm having these calls, I work from remote from home, these calls from different people in different countries, different states, like Wisconsin, like you, like, what do you mean you're having a snowstorm? Okay, go to work. Here in Louisiana, we're not built for that. We're not built for the snow. So everything was shut down.
Yeah, I saw, I don't know if it was y'all or if it was Florida, that people were just kind of hand tossing out the snow or the salt off the back of the trucks.
Yes.
Oh,
that could have been us. Could have been that's something that Florida or Louisiana would do. We would just go have fun. I have so many I should have got videos, people playing in the snow and things that they did. It was definitely interesting, especially around LSU campus.
Yeah, and snowball fights on Bourbon Street. I mean, that was cool. And we were talking about that in January about whether or not you had ever seen it there in Louisiana.
Yep. Yeah, when they told us it was going to happen, I did not believe we were going to actually have snow, which was interesting. So it was fun, though. It was fun. Yeah. Thanks for asking. We're built for hurricanes, and that's it.
Well, we're built for snow, and we got about 8 inches yesterday too. So we were shoveling out. They canceled schools yesterday.
Oh wow, oh my gosh. See, that's when you know it's something important. They cancel school. Oh my goodness, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well,
so
thanks guys for joining us. As you can see, you're stuck with Michelle and I today. Today's Matt's birthday. Happy birthday, Matt. We're wishing you happy birthday here in the show and those watching. Gabrielle watching from home as well. Today we have an interesting show. We're going to have a lot of things talking about actually that are happening now. I just got a live notification regarding Doge. We'll talk about the Doge effort and how federal judges are blocking or in the way of that. We'll talk about the Trump tariffs that are pending, are going to be tagged on in March, and we'll end with the big game, the Super Bowl that we all saw. We're going to get our feel on where everyone was. Hopefully our audience, as you're watching, let's comment. I really want to hear comments about Super Bowl, actually, because I've had a lot of people I've spoke to, or they didn't really care what team won. They just didn't. They weren't going for a team. They just didn't want the Chiefs to win. I heard a lot of that around here. So we can definitely get into that.
With you being in Louisiana, how close did you get to the bowl? Were you there?
So I am not a New Orleans guy. I've gone to New Orleans numerous times, but for big festivals, I've only gone once for Mardi Gras. I really do try to avoid crowds and like crowds. I mean, this year probably would have been the safest year to go to New Orleans right now, because I mean, all the stuff would happen. The tragedy happened in the beginning of the year in New Orleans, so security was definitely pumped up. I didn't go. I'm about 40 minutes from New Orleans, so I'm close enough. I definitely felt the traffic. Because people were going towards it. The interstate was backed up. The airport was busy. I didn't go to the airport, but the traffic to the airport was very, very busy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I totally derailed us. Let's start our episode off really here with those tariffs, because I know this is a hot button for you. So
it is a hot button for me. So I'm interested to see how you feel. I don't remember. I know Matt, if he's watching, I know how he feels about it, but I don't know how you feel. So I'm gonna start a little clip with President Trump talking about the tariffs and what they do and what they mean, how much and what the impact he believes they're going to have on the economy.
The beginning of making America rich again. Mr. Secretary, do you have anything to say? As you know, Howard is Secretary of Commerce, doing a fantastic job. And what do you have to say about it?
So when you imposed the tariffs the first time, you added 120,000 jobs. And since that time, It's been picked away and nicked away and excluded away, and we've lost 107,000 jobs. And remember, these aren't just general jobs. These are steel workers in America, and now you're going to bring them back. You're going to bring those 120,000 jobs back to America. You are the president who's standing up for the American steel worker, and I am just tremendously impressed and delighted to stand next to you.
Protecting our steel and aluminum industries is a must, and today I'm simplifying our tariffs on steel and aluminum so that everyone can understand exactly what it means. It's 25% without exceptions or exemptions, and that's all countries, no matter where it comes from, all countries. If made in the United States, however, United States of America, there is no tariff, it's zero. So if it's made in the United States, there is no tariff. All you have to do is make it in the United States. We don't need it from another country. As an example, Canada.
So yeah, he was very clear. If it's made in the United States, you will not have tariffs. Make it in the United States. So Michelle, let's give you first impression on that. He said what we saw is 25%, no exceptions to any country on steel, and I think it's 10% on aluminum, I believe. But what's your first impressions on that?
So I had to do a little digging because I actually didn't know anything about Lutnick, or is it Lutwick?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm really bad with names.
No,
but I know that he's been in the industry for quite some time. He was a billionaire that comes from a manufacturing, I believe, background. So for me, I think it is a good slate for him. And what he had said early on was that he wanted those across the board type tariffs. I think it's good. I think if we're going to put a tariff, we shouldn't pigeonhole it into a specific country because, again, we want it American made. We want it American grown, right? But on the flip side, he was it last week before last, he imposed those tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and they used it. I think he used it as a bargaining chip. I think he used it as a show of strength to try and get them to close those borders up, which they did, and then he rescinded those tariffs. So I'm okay with this one, but again, costs are going to rise. We know that costs are going to, because of that, costs of goods are going to rise because we are so dependent on China. And in particular, I see those types of products that we import going up. But I think it makes sense. And I'm really excited to bring back the American made product.
Yeah. So this is my outlook on, I'm very, very, I have a very opinion on tariff. Actually funny, I'm doing a course here in Louisiana that's based on Louisiana politics, and tariffs were brought up, and myself and someone else in my class were going back and forth on tariffs. She's okay with tariffs. They're good. And her and I going back and forth. They had to stop us for a bit because we were kind of getting into it. But yeah, it's that point. So I'm not a big fan of tariffs. I am a free market kind of guy. And I'm even the kind of person that even if another country is putting tariffs on us, I'm okay with unilateral free trade. I get it. That sounds crazy. The only time I'm okay with tariffs is national security. If you can see a national security threat, I'm all for tariffs. But the issue for me is that we're having tariffs on our biggest allies, strongest allies, Mexico, Canada, all of South Korea, Japan, things like that. And I can see short-term tariffs working. So let's talk about the retaliation or the bargaining chip that he used with Mexico and Canada that actually worked in getting them to enforce their borders and to focus on the fentanyl crisis, even though before it can be argued that they were doing that, but maybe not to the speed that Trump liked, which I'm okay with because that's something to do with national security. I'm okay with that. But so to kind of talk about this, I want to bring us back because actually Secretary Howard brought it up. Trump's tariffs in 2018 when he first took office in his first term. So when Trump imposed those tariffs, the U.S. production of steel was already increasing, and this was due to the capital investments and due to the deregulation and the tax reform from his 2017 Trump tax cuts. So I believe those tariffs weren't even needed. And at that time, it was 25% on steel, 10% on aluminum. But in his first term, you had a lot of these U.S. steel and aluminum companies that are U.S. based that wanted these tariffs. And I'm going to caveat this: it's not a coincidence that this go around, you had a lot of these U.S. based companies donate a lot to his campaign. Just saying, I get it though, but I'm just put that out there. But they wanted these tariffs because they saw that as a way of boosting their bottom line, and this was a way for raising the prices on the foreign inputs would allow them to charge more to their consumers, which they did. But the price at the end of the day was paid by the secondary market in America and the manufacturers. And if we're talking about the 2018 tariffs, I know Howard said that he added 120,000 jobs. That may be true, but the real question is at what cost? Because at the same time, we saw Ford have a $750 million loss in their bottom line. And we had General Motors have a $1 billion loss in their bottom line, which also equates to $10,000, which equates to 10,000 employees. So that's another issue that we have to worry about. But before I move on, Michelle, what I really want to ask you is, you're from Wisconsin. I mean, that is a blue collar industry. That blue collar workers are there, manufacturers. Have you heard from people close to you about these tariffs? Are they for or against it?
Yeah, a lot of the people that I run with too are on the fence. Like they are a lot like where they see it's a necessary tool in our tool belt to try and help combat some of the waste that others are imposing on us. Because we're being tariffed and taxed to export our stuff as well. So kind of that tit for tat sort of thing. But I those that are against it are only against it because of the higher prices of the items, not because it's the tariff.
Yeah.
It always comes back to our pocketbook.
Yeah.
It always comes back to the budget. But I would like to unpack what you had said about Ford and about General Motors. Yeah. Do you think it has anything to do with the mandates that Biden had rolled out, that we had to transfer everything over to EV, meaning, and nobody was buying, nobody wants, those are total words, but you look at the market. Yeah. Those electric vehicle markets, some are doing well, but the majority are not. And being forced, when we talk about free market, being forced into a certain product isn't something that I want. And well, I totally get the free market and I love competition. I love being able to buy, cheap goods and get them overnighted from my Amazon, from Bezos. There still has to be a point in time where sometimes we're going to have to play that sort of defense in order to start getting, I guess, the comeuppance that we are. Yeah. We take care of the world. It's time, it's time to kind of cut those strings and pull back a little bit and take care of our home first.
Yeah. Yeah. And you brought up a good point. Before I answer it, I want to say two things. First, Michelle's got a point said in the chat. We want to hear your points on tariffs. Let us know in the chat. We'll show them, we'll talk to them about it. Please let us know. Second, I want to give a at-home example about free market and capitalism. So this past session in Louisiana, we had a special session. And part of that is we have an inventory tax, which is bizarre. I think we're the only state that has it. So you're taxed on the inventory you keep in your business. I know, isn't that crazy?
That's so weird.
I know. It's crazy. So we're trying to get away with it, but it's so hard because that's how local governments are funded, or inventory tax. But now, so beforehand, it was it was law. You had to have inventory tax. But now the state is allowing each parish, which are counties to everyone else, but we have parishes. Each parish should decide if they want to keep the inventory tax or get rid of it. And that stimulates competition. So that means if I'm a business owner and I live in XYZ parish that has has an inventory tax, I might want to move to ABC Parish that doesn't have an inventory tax for business. So it creates competition. So
a question. Milwaukee's like that too. Like Milwaukee County has a higher sales tax than than Waukesha County where I live. So the same product at a Home Depot will cost 7 cents more than what it would. But I want to. You are blowing my mind with an inventory tax. Yeah. So how does that work then? And maybe you don't know, and I'll have to look into it, and you can bring it back to me next week.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I won't be here next week. But how does that work then for those independent wholesalers that have a business here, but third party sell through other businesses? So you know how you can have a store, have a business, and just sell exclusively through Amazon, for example, right? Where you look on paper that you have this large inventory, but you don't have it because you don't have a physical inventory.
Yeah.
That blows my mind.
That's a good question, actually. I don't know. I would say if it's on paper, they're going to count it. Because I'm just thinking to go back to Louisiana. Sorry to go back to Louisiana, but thinking something else that we do is that's backwards. Our homestead exemption. We have one of the best homestead exemptions in the country, but it's weird the way they do it. And so let's say your house, Michelle, is worth $100,000. That's the market value for it. That's how much it's valued for. But when it comes time to pay your property tax on it, the assessor comes out and they can say the replacement cost is $250,000. So you're taxed on $250,000 instead of the $100,000 your house is marketed as, that's how the insurance works too down here, which is why we have terrible, we don't have very good home insurance down here. But to that point, talking about if it's on paper and the way that's done, I imagine the government will try to get every dime they can. So I imagine they'll count on paper as inventory.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Our property taxes, they have an assessor that drives around physically, and I think it's like every 7 years you're supposed to reassess, and that's what our property taxes are.
Yeah, I think ours is every 4 years. Unfortunately, our exemption is $75,000. So fortunately, we have a pretty good homestead exemption.
That's nice. Yeah, except our property, you look at our governor though, and our governor just wrote in last year a 400-year property tax increase to fund public schools. So but I could go on and on about that. So it's just I don't know. I think the tariffs work on some levels. I'm okay with it right now.
Yeah. But to bring back to your other point about President Biden. So you made a very good point of under President Biden's administration, there's so much regulation that U.S. manufacturing was struggling, which led to a fall in demand for steel. So you're right. And now that's why we're seeing a lot of U.S. steel makers and aluminum metal makers are asking for those no exemptions this time, because in 2018 they got them. They got Canada, Mexico. They got their exceptions because Canada, Mexico were going to retaliate against America, and Trump's like, "Okay, we'll exempt you guys." But now they're seeing that because these U.S. metal makers, they're blaming these imports for reducing prices, but the steel prices are about 50% higher than they were at pre-pandemic levels. So it doesn't really, that's why I'm saying it doesn't really make sense on why we're having tariffs, because what we're seeing is that steel prices are 50% higher than they were pre-pandemic levels. So the prices are still up. So they're still charging high enough, but the demand just isn't there, which I get that. But making the price even more expensive will not increase the demand, if that makes sense. I'm going with that.
No, it does. It totally does. Yeah. It's one of those things that is, I don't want to say it's a necessary evil, but sometimes it's a necessary evil. Yeah. But I do agree with you with the opportunity of free market.
Yeah. I just worry. And look, I'm like everyone else. When I'm talking about free market or tariffs, I'm talking about my pocketbook. like most people are. I'm being selfish. The principle of free market means nothing to me if the economy and my pocketbook are not doing well. If free market was hurting it, I wouldn't care about free market. I'm like, who is she? But that's exactly. So that's what I like about free market. It's just a word to me, but it's what I see is helping the economy. And I know Trump likes to tout President McKinley as his hero for tariff. McKinley in his first term was a big tariff president. He was big on it. He was like, we need tariffs. Great. Second term, we actually saw him shift from pro-tariff to more free market. Unfortunately, he was assassinated, and his successor, Theodore Roosevelt, was not as free market as he was. He wasn't focusing as much as he was. So we didn't see the fruit that was gained from that initiative. But that's another thing. I also want Trump to realize that McKinley wasn't always pro-tariff, actually free market in the end. But to bring it all around, I want to reiterate that the risk of retaliation is real and it's going to happen. Going back to 2018, what we saw was, in light of these tariffs, we saw Canada impose a $12.8 billion tariff on American products. We saw retaliation from Canada and Mexico, which led Trump to say, okay, fine, we won't do the tariffs. Now, one thing that Trump did say that I did appreciate, I did like, is he would do, what was the word? Reciprocity, where we will do unto you which do unto us. So if you do 25%, we'll do 25%. 10%, we'll do 2%. If he does that, I still don't love it, but that sounds more like fair trade than what we're having now.
Yeah, and I guess I assumed that that's the way it was going to run. Yeah. But you know what happens when you assume.
Yeah, I really do think that the U.S. steelmakers have a big part in this, because they did a lot this year for political. They were big donors this year. I'm not mad at them for it. It's the game. You're playing the game.
You look at, we have the big unions, and you look at the corporate union versus private union, and it's the suits that supported all of the other administration, the Harris, versus the actual people in the trenches, the blue collars like my husband, that are out here, that are really truly supporting that. And I think it's more of a downstream effect. So it starts with steel, but you look at the dock workers that almost went on strike for not wanting to upgrade their technology. If you look at those ports, there are so many actual imported necessities that we have in our building, in our structure, in our foundation, that I don't know.
And I just worry that these tariffs, instead of increasing employment, it would decrease employment, because let's just say, yes, we increase employment with the U.S. steel industry, but what do we lose? We might lose auto manufacturers, Ford, like we said before, Buick, whatever. They might lose because they're very against this, because they use the steel that's coming from overseas because it's cheaper. So if they now have to buy from the U.S., which is a lot more expensive, then they'll have to raise prices. If they have to raise prices, it's going to pass to consumers. But if they can't raise prices enough, they're going to have to cut employees. They're going to have to ensure their bottom line is still intact. And to those who say, well, then they shouldn't be able to fire their employees, they should be required to keep them. And I've heard that before. That's a whole discussion within itself.
Well, yeah. You know what? I have heard it, but it just goes back to right to work, and right to work. Act 10 is a big hot button issue for me it is. This year.
So you can bring that up, but I mean, that's another thing for me, talking about government's role, is I truly believe the business's sole purpose is to produce profits for their shareholders. That's their only purpose in this world. That's their only job they should be having. But so to get past that though, but yeah, I mean, let's focus on the big picture here, not just the micro picture on tariffs. Michelle, I think you brought in some good points here, and and what it actually means. And I think you do bring that different perspective of Wisconsin, and coming from a state that is very known for manufacturing and the hard work that you guys do out there.
Absolutely. I mean, we're one of the largest, believe it or not, we're one of the largest shipyards in the country. So we build some of the largest fleets that you'll see. But we also have Mercury Marine. Of course, you can think I'm a big fisherman, so I'm thinking boating, right? Mercury Marine. We have so many different. We founded so many different products throughout the years that it's going to affect us. It's going to affect those prices.
Yeah.
We have a comment in the chat here that asks, "What if tariffs will become the new tax revenue and is part of Trump lowering tax cuts? More in Income Tax Cuts Act."
You want me to start that off, or you want to lead off?
Go ahead. I got to think about that for a second.
I would say that's a good point, because actually we talked about McKinley, and that was something he used. He did it effectively. Actually, the tariffs were used very well to offset taxes and to increase revenue. And part of Trump's plan is he wants to really tear off the countries that have surpluses, because we have deficits. So it's possible. In the short term, I think it's possible. But in the long term, what's going to cost? What's going to cost is prices will go up. Now, could the prices be offset by the income we save? Possibly, possibly not. And I truly do believe what happens when the government gets more money, they spend more money. What happens when they spend more money? Inflation goes up. Inflation is a product of the government and government alone. I truly believe that. So it's a great idea. I think it can happen in the short term, but in the long term, we will see prices go up for consumers, and we will see inflation raging past the 9% we saw this past year, thanks to President Joe Biden. Michelle, what you got?
Little bit of the same, a lot of bit of the it's good in a short term. I think in a short term for that. You brought up the spending. I think we need to rein it in. We need to cut the government spending. A lot of that DOGE uncovering some of the government waste is great. But until it's great to cut back on this on that and find the waste, but we got to cut the spending, and then we have to return it to our taxpayers through lower actual taxes. I think that in the long run will give us a better opportunity for families to get back to zero, I guess, because a lot of families are just they're underwater right now. They're not even living paycheck to paycheck anymore. Yeah. They're literally robbing Peter to pay Paul, and they're having to choose between groceries or energy. And I think if we could do a twofold of cutting the government spending that bloat, as well as then lowering the taxes, I think in the long run would turn us into a better off state than using tariffs.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. Like zero income for tax for people and corporations, a tax. Yeah, I like that idea too.
Yeah. Tiger fan. I've always go ahead.
At the end of the day, taxation is theft. Period. Yes. Go away with it. I wish Wisconsin would go to a flat tax. I mean, no taxes, but I wish Wisconsin would go to a flat tax.
Yeah, I'll say Louisiana, we just create a 3% flat tax. So that's fantastic. But no, Fireton, I'm with you. I've always been a proponent of 0% corporate tax. I think corporations, businesses are the backbone. Income tax, let's do it as well. I am a student of trickle-down economics. I think it works. I think if we do lower regulations on businesses, then they will cut costs and they will pay their people more. I'm not saying it happens every time. I'm not saying every business is perfect, but I think more likely than not, it'll happen, because then that will create competition. Then if you have an employer that doesn't pay you right, then you can go over to the next employer who will pay you right. I think that just creates competition if the government just gets out the way. But to my same point, 0% income tax, 0% corporate tax, it might offset the increased prices that we'll see from Ford, coffee beans, you name it. Because what tariffs do is when we apply tariffs, we aren't charging the country itself. We're charging the business. So let's say Ford, we impose 25% tariffs on each car. this car is going to Germany. Germany's not paying that tariff. The car company is paying that tariff, and that car company is just going to pass on the cost of that tariff to the consumer. There's no way they're going to eat that cost. So if the 0% income tax offsets that, great, it could possibly work. But I think that most companies are greedy and they'll just keep raising prices. Kind of like let's think about student loans. Is colleges are going to keep raising tuition as long as governments are paying for it, right? I mean, that's kind of how I think about it. But you did bring us a good point, Tiger fan, about how it would be a great revenue generation for our economy in the short term. I think in the long term it might hurt us. Michelle, any last points on this?
No, I don't think. I think that was really good. I think it was a good discussion about it. I think too. While you changed my mind a little bit about it turning into more of a short term, and Tiger, I got to say that to you too as well. I think tariffs are a good thing, but educating on a little shorter term basis. So, yeah. But we had talked about Doge, and I think that's where we're headed to, right?
I believe so. I think you're going to kick us off in that.
I am I'm so excited, and we'll kick this off because, as you know, I'm a huge Elon fan. I'm not a Tesla Cybertruck fan, but I love Elon and what he's doing for our country, our world. I love the fact that he is making and catching rocket ships from the sky. He is the one that I think is going to put a man on Mars in my lifetime, which is crazy to think. But right now he is cleaning house and finding waste, Javen. And this, we had started to talk about it a little bit last week. But now since then, judges have started to completely block everything. I'm not sure if you've looked at some of the waste that they have found, Javen, but there was Sesame Street, $20 million for Sesame Street in Iraq. There was a $60,000 to a drag show opera, or a drag opera in Colombia. There was 59. Now it's about 59 million that just went to New York for illegal aliens, I think, or was that the FEMA one? I'm probably wrong. I think that was the FEMA money. But either way,
our money.
There's so much government waste, and the country is losing their mind over it. And it's the masochistic part in me is I'm loving watching people's heads explode over people who are pointing out who's robbing your bank, and you're mad at him for pointing out somebody who's robbing you. Mm-hmm. And it blows my mind.
So I have a comment on this, but I'm going to play your video. You want to go and play your video first?
Yeah, okay. We'll play it and then I'll explain it.
Okay, because I have some comments what you were talking about.
Clarifying that the government can limit access to federal funds on the basis of the applicable authorizing statutes, regulations, and terms. Essentially, yes, the government can do so in complying with regulations, and then that the previous order does not bar both the president and much of the federal government from exercising their own lawful authorities to withhold funding without the prior approval of the district court, meaning, again, they can disperse the monies that they were allocated within the law, within the confines of the law, and that the government does not have to seek pre-clearance from the courts on terminating funding as long as they have the authority to do it, as governed by the applicable statutory, regulatory, or grant terms. So essentially, the court is confirming what the Trump administration has maintained and what common sense can project, which is that within the confines of regulatory and normal authority, of course, you can do what you want with your own money, and you don't need a court's approval to do so.
Yep, that's...
Yeah, so what she was talking about here is there are judges that were appointed by Obama that have basically put a complete freeze on the freeze of the money that USAID is sending out. And what the judge the other judges are finding is that they are well within their rights, within the rule of law, of course, to do exactly what they're doing, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah. It's funny. The Democrats are so surprised that this is happening. When Trump ran, he made it very clear he was going to get Elon Musk in there to fine wasteful spending and get through the bureaucracy of it all and create efficiency in our government. And the fact that they're so against this is showing the American people that they're still this gummy little party that is not really caring about the American people and their tax dollars, but they're more worried about getting these headlines and more worried about keeping the bureaucracy that is wasting tens of billions of the taxpayer dollars.
Billions. Our state, our governor is joined in the league of states that are vowing to sue and stop Trump and his Doge. Can you hear the enthusiasm in my voice over that? Because it just doesn't make any sense, exactly. And this is what irritates me as well is we are finding the waste. This is not they're not going through and they're not cutting. They're talking about cancer research and they're talking about this and they're trying so hard to nail something down that is actually of substance, because none of this stuff is happening. And I'm just getting a kick over watching X and the community notes just explode, which fact check to fact check, it's kind of refreshing to see that there are people that are non-biased that are fact checking everybody now. Everybody's getting fact checked. So but for them to come back around and then say that this is somehow bad is just it's not the truth though. They're not cutting the research. They're cutting the overhead costs. They're in Wisconsin, for example, that it was found out that for every $1 million of our tax money that come to UW-Madison, 550 million of that is sent off into overhead. And that's not the research. That's not that sort of stuff. It's the HVAC. It's the, which I get all of that is, but over half of it isn't even going to the actual project that it was earmarked for. It's going to the overhead. And these universities have huge endowments, have huge, huge, huge money coming in from every which way from Tuesday, including the students. And the product isn't getting any better. I feel like they're only making us worse.
Yeah, you're right. Back to when the government gets involved, the productivity will go down, prices will go up.
David, and to another thing, sorry.
You're good.
The news that came out during the week about the IRS agents or the retirement, that only 10,000 can retire a month because they are being housed. It's all done by hand. It's all done by paperwork in a mine, in an underground mine. And I watched a documentary years ago about it, but they never mentioned anything about that mine. So that was interesting to hear, because again, streamline this process. Why is it taking so long? Government.
No surprise there. And so I get there are some valid points that judges are making, the other side are making, is he shouldn't have access to public records, to public information, because I think there was an issue with he wanted to access taxpayers' names, information. I get that. You're not an elected official. You weren't confirmed by Congress. I get why you can't do that. So that I'm all with. But they're nitpicking those little small instances and blowing them up bigger than they should. That's not what he's focusing on. Because we got to remember, he is not an elected official. He is not confirmed by Congress. So he doesn't have those kind of decision rights. He's a team, he's not getting paid, but everything he does have to go through the White House, and those people in the White House have to make those decisions. So it's not Elon Musk isn't waving his wand and saying, hey, we're going to cut this, this, and this. There are people that we elected to a point that are there making these decisions. So we got to think about that as well.
And you can't tell me that, again, all of these other elected officials don't have multi-million-dollar lobbyists in their ear at all times, trying to persuade them to go their way. It's just they're pissed off that it's Elon right now.
Yeah. And
it's probably, I mean, it is the most, I can't think of another administration that has been more transparent or has been more open and forthcoming about what is going on. And about, you know, I'm a big believer in receipts. I like binders. I was a huge fan of Kayleigh McEnany with their binders. And now with Karoline Leavitt and her bringing receipts every single time. I bring the receipts. And it's refreshing to have almost an open door. I feel like there's an open door in this administration. Now, do I agree with everything that they're doing? No, not everything. You know, I wish we could cut some more and spend less. But I think that this is such a new, different, and a different version of Trump. I mean, yeah, he's still his trolly, boisterous self, but I see just a whole culture shift, and it's exciting to see.
Yeah. And I'll say Elon has done more in 3.5 weeks than I'll say Trump did in his first term to cut down on government waste and inefficiency. So like you were talking about with President Trump, now he's coming, he's not playing around. He's here to get stuff done, and it's great. I will note one irony though. Well, first, with the irony ties into this is, I think we need to focus more on subsidies and who we're giving money to when it comes to companies, because the government should not be in the business of propping up business. That's what China does. That's China's job. China does that. And when people ask why China's stuff is so cheap, it's because the government, one actually, top reason is because China is very deregulated when it comes to business, because the government owns it all. So it's very deregulated. So if we want cheaper goods so we can compete with China, let's deregulate. That's a great start. Trump did that in his first term, and we saw deregulation happening. Then he put the tariffs on and it kind of put us back a little bit. But deregulate, and we will see prices go down. But so back to the irony part.
And I was excited, and I truly was excited. And this is a good, I think, transition over to Super Bowl. So with all of the Doge and everybody losing their mind and all of this highlight and this hoopla, the Super Bowl was last weekend, and there was rumor that Elon was going to buy a bunch of ads and just throw up a bunch of Doge numbers. And I saw Twitter after Super Bowl go nuts, asking where the commercials were. And I'm sure that there were some people that only tuned in for the commercials, like myself, because go Sports Balls. You know, I wasn't watching it for the actual sport. I was watching it for halftime and for the commercial. And part of me was looking forward to it. I even told my husband, I was like, hey, rumor has it Elon's going to buy some commercials in here. Looking forward to seeing it. Didn't see it. But yeah, so I didn't see any Doge commercials, which I think was a smart play. I don't think that would have played well into what they're trying to truly accomplish. And being, I think it would more seem of almost like a propaganda hit piece that the mass media are doing right now. And I don't think that they want to be the same. So, but we do have, and the leading up to the Super Bowl, I want you to play the one commercial that I put in, and it was an ad for the Super Bowl. And I think it really set the tone for it. And tell me if you felt that the tone of the Super Bowl was the same after you watch this.
That one's the halftime one, right?
The
basketball one. Halftime one.
No, the basketball one's later. It's the patriotic one.
Got it. Yeah, first time me seeing this, so we'll get my raw live reaction.
How did we rise? The only way, together. Isn't that union at the core of this day? And this glorious, chaotic, exasperating experiment that is us. As we convene with our circles today, as we witness a piece of our culture play out, we honor the ways these players compete so their teams might prevail. Today, we celebrate the urgency of now, the thrill of what's next, the glory of this game. And we do it as one. It's time, America, to huddle up. It's time for the Super Bowl.
I love that.
Isn't that great?
I love that commercial. That was great. Now,
that was probably one of my favorites. Like, and that wasn't even like the commercial of the commercials. That was like, let's go.
I didn't see that. That's crazy. I didn't. Was that that was before the Super Bowl started?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I did not see that. So that was, I guess now that I've seen that was probably the best part of the whole game. The game itself was terrible. That's why it's called Not So Super Bowl. Because you probably didn't watch the game, but it was a terrible game. It was a blowout. Eagles won easily. But no, I like that commercial. I didn't see that, and I like that it's unity. And it doesn't talk about current conflicts. Doesn't talk about it. Doesn't bring in all that stuff. It just talks about we're one nation and we're coming together for this patriotic, this American event, which is the Super Bowl, where it doesn't matter if you're an Eagles fan or a Chiefs fan. It's the idea of American football, which is the pastime of almost all Americans in this great country.
Yeah, and it really kind of set the tone, I think. Yeah, America. Save the day. I always think of that, Team America. Have you ever seen Team America? That's immediately I go to Team America when somebody says America. But it kind of set us up and set the whole direction up for the feeling of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I felt that this year that it was patriotic, that it was more about the American family. I saw more families in commercials. I saw more parents with kids in commercials. I saw more things. I mean, you've got the standard Clydesdales with Budweiser. You've got the, the car commercials of the Jeep commercial with Harrison Ford, I want to say.
Is that what it was? Okay.
Was it Clint? Might have been. No. Anyway, the Jeep commercial. But all of those are your standard. You come to expect it a sort of an Americana feel. The whole thing, even into the halftime show with Kendrick Lamar, that was all patriotic, and that was full. We could talk all day long about that halftime show.
That was fun. That was such a watch. Like my house, the people, we had a group of friends. It was lights were out. Everyone was quiet. Just listen. We had to put, of course, captions on. We couldn't understand what you're saying, but just watching. It was good.
Did you catch all of the different symbolisms in there, Javen, with the American flag and as the people were dying, they were formed. They all fell in the symbol that we don't talk about. It was having Serena Williams do the Crip Walk, which is Drake's ex, and the whole playing the video game with Samuel L. Jackson and the game over. There was so much symbolism wrapped up into this that, I mean, at times he's giving the middle finger, and at times he's trying to bring us back together. And it just, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean,
but I also was like, oh,
yeah, and to your point, I think with him saying him bring us together, but also at the same time kind of putting a mirror to our face, it's him showing what we live daily life now, is we have politics pulling us apart, but then at the same time we have things like football and sports that bring us together no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Things like that bringing us together. So yeah, that's a very good point. And yeah, I was the same way, sitting there, Samuel Jackson, things he said, I'm like, oh, I don't like that, but it's like, okay, it's good. And to your point of patriotism, this was the first Super Bowl a sitting president has ever been to. So that was patriotism within itself. That was amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was crazy.
I was a little perturbed that they cut the bottom pan out of that car with the hundreds of folks coming out of the old car at the beginning, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you saw, but there's also a protester that showed up. He was waving a Palestine flag. You saw that, yeah.
I saw that too. I did see that too. So we had talked about like the symbolism and what things mean.
Mm-hmm.
I have another one that's on here that I don't think you've seen, that I want to get your first reaction, and then I'll tell you how I feel about it.
Okay.
If you want to play that one.
Let's do it.
You can't be demanding. You can't be relentless. You can't put yourself first. So, put yourself first. You can't be confident. So be confident. You can't challenge. So challenge. You can't dominate. So dominate. You can't flex. So flex. You can't fill a stadium. So fill that stadium. You can't be emotional. So be emotional. You can't take credit. You can't speak up. You can't be so ambitious. You can't break records. You can't have any fun. You can't make demands. You can't keep score. You can't stand out. Whatever you do, you can't win. So win.
So my first reaction is that's a great message for young women. But my second reaction is, so I can't, if I'm a woman or a girl is probably for girls, I can't do this stuff, but I can only do it if I buy Nike. Okay, so if I can buy Nike, then I can win. If I can buy Nike, then I can be a powerful woman. If I buy Nike, then I can go out there and flex and win championships. Nike has always been that company that, and I'll give them credit for it, it's not afraid to do what every other company is kind of afraid to do. Like right now, a lot of companies are going away with the DEI, switching away from that. It seems like Nike is more embracing that at this moment with this commercial, Super Bowl commercial at that, where the most eyes are on a commercial. So that's my first impression. Is I get the commercial. If their audience are young girls, good job from a business perspective. If your objective is to give young girls confidence without buying your product, not a good job. It seems like you're saying you need this product to be confident. Not a good idea. And if you really want to make girls confident, then why'd you only have itty bitty women in here? Why do you have plus size women? Just saying. So that's my first impression on it.
So yeah, I agree with all of that. I do not get inspiration out of it though, because again, the overall message is you can't. I don't like being told no. I get it, and when I'm told no, it drives me to make me want to do things, but I don't want to have to do it at Nike's behest. And Nike is known for doing what is the now in order to make a profit, and understandably that's what businesses do, right? That's what they're in. You don't start a business to not make money. But I think their way of going about it, so a couple of the I don't know the other girls, but I saw Caitlin Clark in there. And if you know Caitlin, you know Caitlin Clark.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm surprised. I mean, I know Caitlin Clark.
I say everyone should know. I don't know how she became a household name. Isn't that crazy? She's a household name now.
Yeah, she is. And her story, I think there was a missed opportunity that they could have highlighted real women.
Yeah.
Real women, biological women, because Nike has in the past gone through and done the DEI, the transgender athletes. And they hyped up all of that sort of thing when it was cool, and now that it's not cool anymore and we have changed, I see them trying to sort of just almost like posing that they care about it, which we know at the end of the day I don't feel that they really do. I mean, you look at where their products come from. It comes from China, who produces all of their stuff, and we just got through talking about how their lack of regulation, their lack of using grown adults for producing
child labor,
for producing their product. Just do it is their Nike slogan, and everybody knows Nike from Just Do It. But if you look at the history of how that actually came to be, it was a serial killer on death row, and as he was going to, you got any final last words, about to be executed, he said, "Just do it." And they said, "Okay, we want to use that for our Nike slogan," and they've used it ever since.
Okay, I don't know that. I want something new. Okay.
Yeah. Just Do It is after a death row inmate. His final words were "Just do it." So I can't get down with them. I can't get down with them. And they seem like they're posing for the moment because that's what the culture wants right now. And as a girl, I'm not inspired. Yeah. And my little girl wasn't either.
Yeah. After the Colin Kaepernick fiasco with them, I was kind of off Nike. So I used to have stock in Nike, but after the Colin Kaepernick actually sold,
I don't watch sports anymore, Javen.
Yeah.
That is the whole reason why I turned off football years ago, is because of the Kaepernick thing. And I'm slowly coming back because again, the Packers, I mean, you can't not be a Packers fan. You can attempt to be. You can attempt to be. We know you're a cheesehead. We know everybody's a cheesehead at heart.
Of course, But fortunately, the NFL is going away from that. They're taking off the end racism on the goal lines. I don't think they're playing the Black national anthem anymore. So hopefully they're kind of going to the spin of, can we just play football? We're not here to be lectured to. And that's another good point in this commercial is when people are watching the Super Bowl, they don't want to be lectured at. And there was the Super Bowl commercial. I didn't have it in my video, so I'm going to say this commercial where Snoop Dogg and Tom Brady are yelling at each other. And like, okay, I don't want to be lectured at. Can we just watch Super Bowl, please? Like, I get it, but please stop.
Tiger, I like that. He said, "Just do it" should be the slogan. Get it over with. Just kill off the spending. I love it. I love it. But I think we have some fun ones too in the mix. So before we get to rants and raves, let's play some fun ones.
All right, we'll start with yours, Michelle. Your fun one.
Aliens.
UFO detected.
Come on, man! Doritos. Yeah.
I love it.
That's funny.
I'll
say on that, Doritos have always been my favorite halftime commercial or my Super Bowl commercial. I will say the commercials this year weren't as good. I don't know what it was, but my favorite Doritos halftime commercial was this kid and he was meeting his mom's boyfriend for the first time, and the boyfriend started eating the Doritos, and the mom went to the kitchen, and the boy goes up to the boyfriend and slaps him in the face and says, "You don't touch my mama, you don't touch my Doritos." And that has been my favorite, probably Super Bowl commercial ever, but definitely Doritos commercial. It was so funny.
That sounds like one of those comments that you'll say for the rest of your life. Somebody you know, one of your roommates is eating your Doritos. You're like, you don't touch my mama. You don't touch my Doritos. My favorite Doritos one. Do you remember the one where the kid's in the box and he gets his neighbor or the guy into the time machine box and he just kind of starts kicking it around? Well, this one, for example, I think is I find amazing because yes, Doritos are always known for it, but this was actually written by a fan. So Doritos had put out a contest to write the best halftime commercial for them.
Yeah.
And this was a fan of Doritos that wrote this and he won. So I thought that was a neat little note about this commercial.
Yeah.
And how timely to bring back aliens when UFOs have now been told that they are real.
It's funny. But I would say it seems like the two things our commercials have in common is that there are kids involved. So maybe Doritos needs to go back to having like little adorable kids lead this commercial. People might like them. I don't know what it is. Something about kids and doing adult things are just funny. I don't know what it is, but that's just what it is.
Do you remember? Oh, I should have brought it up. Do you remember the old halftime Super Bowl ad of the little babies that were in roller skates? Speaking of like babies doing grown-up things, they were roller skating in front of a window and they were grown-ups. And then as they looked at themselves, they saw in the mirror their reflection of them as a child, as babies. And they were like rollerblading and hip hop dancing. It was hilarious. I loved it. And little did I know that a few short years after this one came out, I got the pleasure to perform with one of the actors in that commercial.
No way. That's cool.
I perform in an off-Broadway musical. I've been doing it for about 12 years.
Yeah.
But some of the actors that are in the show are from across the country. And one of them, they're all brilliant actors, by the way.
Yeah.
And they do this for a living. I'm just graced with their presence, and they blessed me for coming in. But yeah, he was one of the guys. So I'll find it. I'll post it on our C2C Network's Twitter page. It's hilarious.
Okay. Yeah. The entire fan saying that Doge proves that aliens are real, Michelle. So you have
100%.
You have
Are you kidding
sources
me?
cited.
Elon and Alien are gonna high five. Mark my words.
Honestly, that would be the craziest thing. If I saw it on TV, like, okay, next. Like, I would not, like, okay, that's okay. I feel like that'd be old news. Like, okay, whatever. But okay, so now I'm gonna play my commercial, and this is my favorite because of the singer in it. And there's two artists in it. I want you to guess which artists I'm talking about. That's my favorite. One of you might even know who this person is, but the other one you'll definitely know who they are.
Mountain Dew Baja Blast.
Refreshing.
It's kissed by the perfect amount of tropical lime.
The bay. Ooh, the moment I think of it, strange on the sea. Yeah, my flippers can't hold Mountain Dew. It slips right on through the watershed. There is so much as he can tell you, so much he can say. My power, my pleasure, my fame.
Baby.
I'm jamming. Hey, Tiger fan close, but unfortunately no cigar there.
I love Seal. Oh, that makes me so happy. And
yeah, it was someone named Becky G and Seal. So those are the two.
Who's Becky G?
Honestly, Becky G. I know I've listened to her songs before, but I couldn't tell you a song by her. I didn't know she was in the commercial too. I went on YouTube and saw. I was like, oh, I know she's in that. Like, Sil was the one. I was like, oh my god, I love Sil.
His voice is recognizable, and the fact that they had him playing a seal, how hilarious is that? And when you can laugh at yourself, that's when you're truly, you just don't give a hoot, right? We'll say hoot again.
And those are the commercials that I love, when people are able to do like stupid things, but they're funny. Where it's like, seal as a seal. Okay, that's hilarious. Of course, that makes it. That's just hilarious.
Oh my gosh! And his wife is known. Heidi Klum is known for her her Halloween costumes. Yes. I don't know if you're aware that she goes all out for those.
And I think she was a worm this year, huh? Was that this year? She's a worm.
Okay. Was it a worm this year? Maybe it was. I don't know. But she went with like 12 other actors and became a peacock one year. Amazing. She was Shrek and Fiona.
I remember Shrek.
She's amazing. I mean, and for a celebrity couple, I have to give it to them because they have been together for decades, and that is unheard of as a celebrity couple. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know who Becky G is though. No. I love that one.
I know.
That was a good one.
But on the note of celebrity gossip, now it's time for us to give the viewers some of our gossip. It's our favorite part of the show.
Rant and Raves.
Thank you, Matt, for that wonderful introduction. Michelle, you want to kick us off with your rant and rave?
Deep breath, because I am ranting, and I'm trying to not get us censored because I swear like a truck driver. So I'm really trying to hold my P's and Q's right now. So right of first refusal came back to Wisconsin today. They dropped Senate Bill 28, and I am livid pissed about this, Javen, because it actually, right of first refusal is the incumbent utility companies can be the first to bid out these projects on new transmission lines in Wisconsin. And we have had recently billions of new projects approved in our corridor, in our area. And our legislators are now freezing out the competition. We had talked about free market, but they have now given these two incumbent utilities carte blanche to be able to bid out these two projects. There's two companies to bid out these projects, which, as you know, competition lowers costs. And there are 30 other already approved companies that can build these new transmission lines that are now frozen out of the opportunity to even build these billion-dollar projects, which, by the way, those costs are going to come down to you and, well, not you, me, because I live in Wisconsin, and some of it I'm not even going to use the power for because they're just cross-through transmission lines that connect two states that Wisconsin doesn't use. Yeah. And another thing, they are right now capped at a 10.2% profit cap. This bill removes those profit caps, meaning these utility companies can now charge whatever they want in profit on top of it. And we know on these projects, cost overruns, it never ends on time. My husband's an electrician, so I think maybe that's why it gets me so hot and bothered, because it's not like he's not one of those high line electricians. So it's not like his company is going to even have a chance to even talk about this or bid on these types of projects. But this is horrible for Wisconsin. We have been able to stop it twice before. Right. Other states that have already approved it are now trying to repeal it because it's so bad. It was so bad last session, they used a voice vote so nobody could see on paperwork who actually supports this thing. Javen, I am angry. I'm so angry, and this is ridiculous. And when we talk about DOGE and we talk about government waste, this is one of the biggest wastes of a bill.
No, I understand it. Here in Louisiana, we have a duopoly with our energy, with our two biggest energy producers in the state. We have a board of people who regulate them, but it's meaningless. They charge out the wazoo when a hurricane happens. They just charge so much. And actually, this year, I have a good friend. He's a Democrat, and he's on the board. great guy. I love the guy. He's actually doing great on the board. He's doing a great job actually holding them accountable. The only thing we disagree on is the solution. My solution is free market. His solution is more regulation. I'm like, okay, maybe, because the thing is, I'm not gonna say too much because there's a lot of inside information here, but they're looking at getting more competition in the state of Louisiana, if you will. So looking at that's a possibility. If it happens, energy bills will go down. But no, you're right. That is a big issue. And Wisconsin, a state where, the weather is not, it's not, especially the weather is not very friendly with you guys. So.
Well, you're not going to be able to build some of these, for 6 months out of the year. So you don't, the projects are going to go long. Yeah. There's already MISO approved projects. Kansas, I believe, has already repealed it. Minnesota is in the process of repealing it. Texas has found it unconstitutional. They put it in, and then they were like, well, wait on a second, it's unconstitutional. So it prevents trade, it prevents commerce from across the border, your state's border. And another thing, and one more thing, those states that have been able to use competitive bidding have actually shown to save taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. New Jersey, I believe it was 900 million or 500 million. There's another state, I can't remember the second state. I'm probably inverting the two amounts, but hundreds of millions of dollars in competitive saving on new power lines versus ROFR bills who remove cost caps for these companies.
And I don't know exactly, but I would imagine with the open bidding, you don't have to subsidize because the companies know they're getting into, and they know, okay, I'm not going to bid because I want a subsidy, but this company will do it for cheaper. So they'll compete with each other, even though no subsidies are there from the government. But if the government says, hey, we'll give you this contract and a subsidy, I don't have to bid for it. Great. I'll do it.
There are billions of dollars coming in through subsidies right now for that green energy, for the grants that are coming through, for all of that. That's billions of these projects and awards coming through. And 2 companies in Wisconsin, 2 companies only are allowed to bid on these, and then we're left paying the cost.
Yeah, as an oil and gas state, I definitely feel your frustration with subsidies. But
Woosah, Javen, woosah.
Yeah. But my rave actually is on the same front of regulations. Isn't that crazy? A rave and regulation. You wouldn't think those would go hand in hand. But mine's more on the federal front. So President Trump, if you're familiar with it, it's the the Corrupt Practice Act, which outlawed U.S. businesses from enticing or bribing foreign countries or governments to benefit their business interests. President Trump went in and said he can't repeal the law himself, but he told the DOJ to he worded it very more eloquently, but he said, don't focus on this, focus on other things. And I'm all for it. I think if other countries and other businesses in let's say Mexico are able to bribe a company in Saudi Arabia, I'm all for it. Because if we can't do it, then we aren't able to compete on an even playing field with that country. Now, don't do it here. Doing it here is very illegal because right now, and they've actually really been enforcing this, especially Biden's administration, that if energy was, or not energy, I don't know what energy is, if Boeing was going to China and saying, hey, we want to build a plant here, but China's okay, we already have another company from Mexico that will bribe us to do it, we're not going to take you. I think it's good that Boeing can say, fine, we'll give you a little pushback or a little thing on the table to let you do it. I'm all for it. I really want to know your opinion on this though before we end it out. Like, how do you feel about that? It's like the idea of allowing U.S. businesses to be on a even playing field on foreign soil, foreign countries.
I don't know, because again, I think of all of the different ways that it can then be used nefariously. Are the countries actually telling us now? Are they going to use it as hey, I'm going to tell them that Mexico is giving me 20% extra so that they bump it up to 25?
Yeah.
Am I going to, so that they can get that extra I think it's just more so of another way to almost like hold our
Yeah.
you know, as a kickback, as a bribe,
Yeah.
because again, I mean, that's what lobbyists get paid for.
Mm-hmm.
So
hey, it's legal here, so it should be legal there.
You know, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, they already have those for the other countries. They've got lobbyists that are for, I'm sure, for other foreign countries. So I mean, and I'm sure they've got, you know, utilities. They've got Boeing. They've all got, you know, they've all got their hands in the government's pockets somewhere, and they've all got one hand in their pocket while they've got the other one reached out telling them, give me more.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I have to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah, it's when it came out, I didn't know what it was at first. And I read into it, was like, oh, okay, I like this. Less regulation across the country. Let's be able to compete across the ocean, across the pond, if you will. I'm all for it. Let's do it. But I think talking about regulation and deregulation was a great way to end the show, because we are a conservative free market show. I think we can all agree on that. So I think that was a great way to end. Michelle, I appreciate you jumping on with me today, or me jumping on with you. I don't know, this is more your show now than mine. So I appreciate you letting me come and enjoy your show.
Are you kidding me, Javen? You're the one who's doing all the button pressing behind.
Hey, this is fun. I enjoy the buzzer. I enjoy the button pressing. This is a fun part.
All the different plate spinnings. No, Javen, it was awesome. Yeah, and thank you guys to everybody in the chat. Gabby, we saw you on Twitter too. She said she loves They Not Like Us is what stood out to her most. Tell your friends, follow us on the different socials and on the YouTubes. And I'll be off next week. So Javen, I think you'll be here, and I think Matt will be back next week, and you guys can catch up on all the birthday stuff that he did tonight.
Yes, I'm excited to see what he did tonight. I'm sure something fun with his 4 or 5 kids. I'm sure they all did something fun together.
Yeah,
it's like on the couch right now.
Yeah, I know. It's what, 9 o'clock out by y'all?
Yeah,
he's probably half asleep.
Yeah. All right, well, this was fun. Thank you guys for watching. Join us next week on Coast to Coast Network, where we talk about the breaking news and how it affects you and those close to you in your community. Thank you, guys.
Bye.